What's going on, guys? Matt Manduke here, and today I have something a little bit different, but it's something I've been thinking about, so let me get into it. Today I'm going to do a comparison of all the different root beers. No, I can't get every single root beer, so I have Walmart brand root beer as a representative of the generic root beers. I also have all the major brands, which is Barks, A&W, and Mug. I also have IBC and Stewart's. These together with the Walmart brand represent most of the major brands, and I may add more later if I find root beers that I think are actually worth it. Later would be in another video. But what I'm going to do with this comparison is I'm going to pick what I think is the best root beer, and whatever the best root beer is, if I find other ones later, then I'll compare it to the best one and tell you what I think, because I do know Fago makes a root beer and you can only get that in some regional areas. COVID-19! And there's a lot of generic root beers, and I will compare them because they do vary. Like the Dollar General brand, I don't particularly like it, but I kind of want to show it to you. But in my profession, going from store to store is not the easiest thing. It's not like driving to do stuff. So let me switch the camera around and I'll introduce my different root beers. All right, so from the left to the right, you're looking at A&W, Walmart brand root beer, Mug root beer, Barks root beer, then IBC root beer. And yeah, these guys, they're actually, my mom gave 6 packs of these root beers for Christmas, and she made them into reindeer, and I've been holding on to the 2 that I have left so that I could shoot this video. But aren't they cute? The I fell off of that, but the C kind of looks like an I anyhow. It is what it is. Like I said, I've been holding on to them, and it's the end of February now, so it is what it is. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to open each one, take a sip out of each one, and tell you what you get out of them. Now I will tell you, because I do have experience with these different root beers, that A&W and Barks tend to be the fizziest. The Walmart brand root beer doesn't have much fizz, but we're also going to look at, and we can do this first, we're going to look at the nutrition facts, not because you're getting nutrition necessarily out of root beer, but I want to tell you what the sugar rating is. That way you can be like, well, the sugar rating for this one, but the sweetness flavor isn't necessarily as good. Walmart brand has 49 grams of sugar, where A&W had 46, so it's a little bit sweeter, and you can see I have been drinking that, but that's, it is what it is. Then Mug root beer has 43, which is actually the least sweet so far, and Barks has 45. So if we put it from sweetest to least sweet, it's actually, so now it's the least sweet to the sweetest, except for we need to look at the IBC, which IBC has 40 grams of sugar, so that's actually less than Mug. And Stewart's, they only have 38, and that's less than IBC. So yeah, there you go, from the least sweet to the sweet, and that's how we're going to run through it. The least sweet to the sweet, I'm going to taste them all, and then I'll end up drinking the whole bottle of the 2 glass ones, because you can't reseal that. All right, let's get to it. All right, Stewart's. And no, I can't take the cap off while I'm holding my phone in order to shoot these videos, but this is Stewart's. Let's see how it goes. Now, Stewart's it didn't fizz up when I removed the cap, and I would have thought it would have, because I keep it in a cabinet in a truck, and I'm in Mississippi where the road is bumpy, and like it didn't fizz up, but it does fizz up in my mouth. Which is kind of what you want more than, there's a dog next to us, and Casper is, well, let me see the dog. Isn't he cute? Alright, so the actual flavor, that is a very good root beer flavor. It's not overpowering. It's really like a robust flavor, and I'm drinking them warm, so that generally makes the flavor come out a little bit more. But yeah, it's a good flavor. It's not overly sweet, but it does still taste sweet, and seeing how it tastes sweet and it is the least sweet, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to move to IBC. IBC was pretty cool, because as I opened it, you might see it a little bit, it's actually there was like a buildup of some kind of steam, and it's not that hot and it's not cold either, but that was interesting. But again, no fizz, and let's see how it goes. All right, IBC compared to Stewart's is a little bit more of a, I want to say harsh. It has a little bit more bite than Stewart's. It doesn't taste as sweet because of that. Now, both Stewart's and IBC say they use cane sugar, so that's, I guess, a little bit more healthy for you, because it doesn't break down the same way as high fructose corn syrup, and I assume high fructose corn syrup is going to be well, in the rest of these. So but they advertise it on the label, and I'm going to take another sip. IBC also says since 1919, which I had this conversation with my mother when we were analyzing the different root beers, and Stewart's is 1924. The IBC is sort of a better root beer flavor than the Stewart's. It doesn't taste as sweet though, even though it is actually sweeter, which is fairly interesting. Mug, let me pause this so I can open it, because I need both hands to open a bottle, but the mug is actually a little bit fizzy there. It might have something to do with their larger proportions in a 2-liter than the smaller bottle, a 12-ounce bottle. That's possible, but we'll see. Okay, mug. Took me a little bit to open it because of the pressure from it fizzing. And as you can see, as I squeeze the bottle a little bit to hold it up, it is still fizzing up. Let's see the flavor. Now, Mug has a decent root beer flavor. They also advertise that it's caffeine free, but most root beer is caffeine free. Barks has a bite. That bite is caffeine. But they're not talking about how long they've been making root beers, none of that. Mug is a Pepsi brand, and Mug is Pepsi's root beer. But the flavor overall has more of an artificial root beer flavor than IBC or Stewart's. It's not as strong as either of them. It's just, I mean, it's root beer, but it's definitely more of a syrupy root beer than it is a more natural type flavor. But I expect that, and Mug, because of that, is not my favorite root beer. But it had to be on here because it is a national brand that almost everybody knows, or everybody, if you're a root beer connoisseur like I am, then of course you know about it. All right, so next up is Barks, and my hands are sticky because of the mug. Okay, Barks did not fizz up like the mug did, but I can tell it's still carbonated, and it rolls around in my overhead compartment. So, I mean, if it has some in it, good. Now, Barks, like I said, has a bite, and the bite that Barks has is because it has caffeine in it. It also does not advertise that it's natural and artificial flavor like the two bottles do, being Stewart's and IBC. It advertises that it's artificially flavored, and they also advertise their date being it's good since 1898, which is further back than, well, any of the ones we've been through so far, and, well, most of them, maybe all of them, I don't know, but it hasn't been a Coca-Cola product for that long, and Barks is it's Coca-Cola's root beer. The flavor, again, does taste more artificial, but not as artificial as mug does. It tastes more natural, more like the natural root beer flavors than mug, and it's pretty good. I don't drink Barks all the time. It's not my favorite, but I if I'm at a restaurant and they offer Barks, I prefer Barks over Coca-Cola, Sprite, or any of their other brands, because I like root beer, but it's preferable. And yeah, it does make you belch, but you can expect that out of root beer, right? I would recommend Barks over mug every time. Okay, A&W had the fizz up that you expect out of a root beer. Like, you can expect to have a head on your root beer like you would with a beer, and that is what you want out of it may not be what you want, but it is something you come to expect from root beer because it is fizzy. And if you're making like root beer floats or something, it's gonna fizz. They're all gonna fizz up because the ice cream activates the carbonation. But that said, now A&W flavor, it is sweeter than, well, it has more sugar in it than the other two major brands, and I don't consider IBC and Stewart's to be major brands, but they should be. In either case, it's sweeter than them. It has a soft root beer flavor, but that's partially because on the bottle they advertise that it's made with aged vanilla. They also advertise that there's no caffeine in it, and they also say it's since 1919, which is the same as IBC. Interesting. Not that the time that they've been making root beer really changes what we're getting today, because I'm sure the way they made root beer in 1919 didn't involve high fructose corn syrup. But the A&W, like I said, it has a soft root beer flavor because of the aged vanilla, but the root beer in it, well, I have to be honest, it is my favorite root beer. I think A&W is superior root beer, and I think a lot of that has to do with, like, I do like the IBC and Stewart's, but they're expensive and they come in bottles, and bottles are a pain in the butt in my truck because I hit a bump and they hit against another bottle and then one of them breaks, and that's a problem. But the A&W root beer, as far as like the big brands, is my favorite. And I think that has a lot to do with, if I look at the company, Barks is just Coca-Cola's root beer. It's an afterthought for them. Coca-Cola is their product. Same thing, Mug is Pepsi's root beer. It's an afterthought for them because Pepsi is their product. And they focus a lot on Mountain Dew, but not on root beer. Whereas A&W is one of the forefront in 7-Up, A&W. I think they have a ginger ale. Oh, Canada Dry, I think. I'd have to research that, and I'm not going to. But I think, and they're involved in Dr. Pepper, but Dr. Pepper is weird because Coke and Pepsi have bottling in it and like distribution, and but not with A&W. Although A&W is in the same kind of bottle that Mug is, I don't think Pepsi has bottling for that. But my point is, A&W I think is a better root beer because their product is A&W. That's one of their focus. And I don't say, like, if Canada Dry is part of the company, yes, they put a lot of focus into Canada Dry and the things that they put into that ginger ale as additives and all that, the pomegranate flavor, all that stuff. But A&W, like I said, is like A&W is their brand, and it's more than just their brand for soda, because they also have the A&W restaurants, which are pretty good. They serve like chili dogs and stuff. So I think that has a lot to do with why their root beer is better than the other root beers that you get in a 2-liter. But in any case, I'm going on about A&W because it's good root beer. Nice and fizzy, but part of the reason I like root beer is because if it goes flat, it's still decent to drink, whereas flat Pepsi sucks. And Coke sucks even when it's not flat. But next is going to be the Walmart, or the representation of generic root beer. Alright, so the Walmart brand root beer, this bottle is beat to crap because I've been drinking out of it for the past 2.5 to 3 days. And I had a blue cap on it. It doesn't come with a blue cap. That was partially also because last night I took a sip out of it and the cap fell out of my hand. And while I'm driving, I can't root around for a cap. So I actually keep an extra cap in the front in the event that that happens, so it's somewhere easy I can grab it to put the cap back on. But it doesn't have a lot of fizz anyway, but because I'm getting toward the bottom of the bottle and the way that I'm drinking it, like, you're going to keep fizz in a 2-liter longer if you're the fizz is going to stay longer if you're opening the 2-liter, pouring it into a cup, and 8, 12, 16, 20 ounces, whatever you do, and then reclosing the 2-liter and putting it back in your fridge or whatever. Me, every time I want to have a sip, I'm removing the cap, which is making that, like, I'm letting out more carbonation every time. So by the time I get to this level, which is, you can kind of see it in there, pretty close to empty, well, probably about a third, then it's pretty much completely flat. And that's what part of the reason why I prefer root beer, because I do like Pepsi, don't get me wrong, but I'll drink that in a 1-liter but not a 2-liter on the road because of the way I'm drinking it. So let's go for the flavor. That's pretty good root beer, and this is my go-to. Partially, like, I'll get A&W, but a lot of times I go for the Walmart brand because they're 62 cents. 62 cents for a 2-liter when the A&W is $1.70, and actually all the big brands, the A&W, the Barks, the Mug, are all $1.70, sometimes more, and that I'm talking about Walmart, where you're probably paying over $2 for those brands at ShopRite or Acme, which and on the West Coast, I don't know if you can get root beer at Whole Foods. You should, but I don't know how that works. And yes, this is an artificial flavor. It's a very soft flavor, and it's packed full of sugar. As we already said, this is the sweetest. It's not dramatically more sweet, but 49 grams of sugar compared to the IBC's 38, or the Stewart's 38, sorry. The IBC was 40. That's quite a bit of difference, and in the amount that you're drinking, it's more sugar than it is carbonation, but it's also caffeine free. It says creamy and delicious on it, premium quality, thick and flavorful. I don't think it's thick, but it sort of is, because it does taste very syrupy. And that's, like, I don't mind it, but it is kind of a thing to get used to. And in the case of, like, it being the generic brand, you don't expect a high quality at a generic brand anyway, and you're not getting it at a Walmart. Like, you can taste that it doesn't have as much in it. But I would say that the Walmart brand root beer is better than Mug, in my opinion. The Walmart brand root beer, I don't think is better than Barks, in my opinion, unless you want something that's caffeine free, because any of these sodas, you're going to be putting a lot of sugar in. So if you're giving it to your kid, a lot of sugar and caffeine is sort of worse than just a lot of sugar, even if it's a little bit more sugar. That's how I look at it, at least, because the caffeine, well, we all know what caffeine does, right? So anyway, guys, let me know in the comment section what root beer really gets you going, or if root beer even does that for you. This video is pretty this video is pretty long, but I kind of expect it to be, because I'm comparing so many things. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. I wouldn't do this without you. I'll see all my friends in my next video.